First up, I'd like to give acknowledgement to the traditional owners of the lands in which we're on today. I'm here on Ghana country. Since we're online, let us all pay respects to all First Nations peoples and our elders, past, present, and future. Here's a quote,
And to the Wurundjeri people here too. So,
and to the Wurundjeri peoples. Absolutely. The quote that I want to give to you guys at the start of this episode, as we listen in, connect on rolling through negotiations, is this: motherhood is near to divinity. Let me start that one again. Motherhood is near to divinity. It is the highest, holiest service to be assumed by mankind. And I chose this quote as it really, to me, does reflect our guest, because our guest is an amazing mother. She's an amazing businesswoman. She is a spark of energy. And to be honest, every time I see our guest, she's doing everything right and balancing a million and one things at the same time. I think that she's so inspirational and such an amazing reflection of motherhood. Our guest today is Tracey Robson Garth. Hello, Tracey.
hey.
Can you share a little bit about yourself? Like, who are you? What do you do? And I say you're amazing. So why would I say you're amazing?
I have no idea because that was
The question? Yeah, right.
the question I have is I'm not sure why I'm on your podcast. Like,
Okay.
because you have all these like cool business people, amazing grapplers, and all that sort of stuff, and then you're like, hey, any chance you want to jump on this? And I'm like, oh, here we go. This is
Max, the superstar. The he, he, he's,
Got it,
he-
okay. All right, so like yeah,
Hi, Matthew.
welcome to the
this
Max
is
podcast.
Maximus, my son, my elder.
I made it in.
This guy, right? You can go get ready now. They're actually supposed to be getting ready for training.
We're thinking of changing this.
He's back.
This
Okay.
look at him posing in the background. He's not just standing; he's posing.
All right.
Max, can you give us one pose for YouTube?
I'm going to give you a quote. I heard
A
it
quote
once.
or a quote or a pose? Did you
Both,
say?
both.
Okay.
I said pose, but Max wants it to be a quote, so both.
Okay.
All right. Many people ask me, how do I get such gains? The answer is simple. Every day I get my reps in. I lift children out of poverty with these very arms. There is no competition.
All right. Off to training.
Guest appearance by Max. So this podcast,
Okay.
I should have done the introduction differently.
Is it
Tracey Robson Garth and Maximus.
so?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why you have me on your podcast, is because Max is always trying to get a cameo into anything he has. So
It was a way of trying to get Max on here because he's so high profile. He would say no to someone like me. So to get you on the and then default as the way into Max, that was the plan. No. So Tracey, you're right. You asked me before we jumped on. You asked me, why did you have me on as a guest for your podcast? Why did you ask me to be on here? And I said, I felt a little bit cold and say, hey, wait on that one, because I want to share the answer raw when we jump onto rolling through negotiations. And now I see you leaning in. You really want to know the answer on that.
I do want to know the answer. Yeah.
Okay. There's a few reasons, but one of the reasons is, number one, I feel like you are an amazing mother. And the example of having Max come in just now is testament to that, because you're an amazing mother who you do such an amazing job in terms of looking after your kids, making sure that they're on the straight and narrow. You've got two boys that I think could quite easily, with the wrong parenting, get quite out of hand. So you have that sorted. You've got a amazing husband who you help bring the best out of him in Kieran, and you support him in everything that he does, that I think is amazing. I think that you are also an amazing keeper of femininity. I think you carry and embody the woman energy really well. And I think that having the radiance of feminine energy in the podcast, it's rolling through negotiations, that is sort of like a masculine sounding type podcast, brings a beautiful new element.
Mm.
You're an amazing businesswoman. I think you do the Yummy Mummy Club, don't you still? Yeah. And what,
Well, no. So I've wrapped up all my, but I did.
You did? So
I lost you. Yeah, sorry. Okay, I think I lost you there, Matthew.
You've got me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. And so are you doing any businesses at the moment? Have you got a business that's up and running at present?
Right now, I am wrapping up pretty much. So I've had multiple businesses, and that's probably a good place to start, actually.
Okay.
I was going to say, so I was coming from motherhood and a business and all of that jazz. It was an interesting thing, because when I started my business, it was not out of a need. Well, I've always been entrepreneurial, always, and I guess with being with Kieran, he's also entrepreneurial as well, but we're in a very different space, each of us. So we don't compete against each other. We kind of just build each other up throughout it. So he started his business I think it was about 11 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. And so I was working in corporate as the national manager of operations for Fernwood Women's Fitness. And then when Kieran started his business, it started going, he started, doing, he always does everything great, but it was sort of I was holding the fort in other ways. Then I had this overwhelming need to be with my kids. So I'd always worked my whole life. And I've always loved kids and always knew they were going to be a part of my life. But when financially, you kind of have to, nowadays, it's two people work in a household. That's just the norm. Yes. And I guess I felt an absolute overwhelming need to be at home when the kids were little, but we needed to work. So both of us needed to work. And then Kieran started his business. And then about a year and a half later, I started my business. And that was so that I could work around the hours of being with my kids. So that was the big part, or the big reason. However, in the moment when I actually started, that wasn't the reason. I said to myself, and I said to Kieran, sort of I didn't want to acknowledge the fact that I just wanted to be with my kids. I wanted to be with them growing up. I wanted to set the standards in the house. I wanted to be all of that. I kind of just said, I want to be an entrepreneur too. I want to have my own business. I'm kind of tired of doing it for someone else. But really, at the end of the day, I think I really wanted to be present in my kids' life. And I wanted to show them that you can have a business, or you can work really hard, and you can be really present. So, but I had to make changes. So it was no more going into the city 9 to 5, which meant I was doing before school care and after school care and things like that. I just had to pack it in and go, well, I'll work around the kids' timetable, and I'll work around Kieran's timetable. And that's how it all started. And then one of the big things was, and I started the Yummy Mummy Club, which at the time was an online fitness business for women. Pre and postnatal training. And it was fantastic. It was amazing. And I think that the reason I came up with the name as well was to kind of I guess when when someone becomes a mum, they, like, society sees them as this, oh, you're now the mum kind of thing, but you're still, you know, a partner, a friend, a daughter, you know, you're still a party girl at heart. You're still a, you're still all of those things, but we kind of like forget that. And you kind of like lose your sense of yourself. So starting the Yummy Mummy Club was the whole kind of like reclaiming, yes, I'm a mum, but I'm also all of that. And it really resonated, I guess, with a lot of women. And within a couple of, I think within 2 years, I had opened up 20 franchises around Australia.
That's amazing.
And that
20.
was but it was too fast. And that was probably a lesson I learned in business was I opened them up. And what I wanted to do was to give other mums that were trainers and fitness instructors, like, you know, personal trainers, an opportunity to open up their business, and so that they could be with their kids as well. Because it was like a kid-friendly training sessions where you bring the kids along. And it was amazing. But the problem was that I grew too fast. And I wanted, I guess, I wanted to give all of the franchisees like an opportunity. And I guess in hindsight, I think I grew too fast in the end, and I didn't have the infrastructure set up to be able to back it, because there's the ups and downs with a lot of when onboarding and things like that. And then we cut it back to and then it changed from just being an online and boot camps and stuff like that, where we had the franchises doing the boot camps around Australia. We changed it from that to an actual gym. So, and then kept it really close. And then I had full control over it. And then that was perfect for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if that will make sense.
You made so much sense then, Tracey, and you touched on all the reasons why I said, hey, Tracey, do you want to be on this podcast with me? Because the amazing journey of business and balancing motherhood and what you've explained is just incredible in so many ways. One of the things that I loved about what you said was your focus and the reason why you set up the Yummy Mummy Club. And part of that was to enable women to appreciate who they are and be at their full potential, rather than having to give all of this away in the pursuit of motherhood. Because it's incredible when I look around and see mothers, which I'll never be. I'll never be a mother, obviously, but I see mothers who forego their own identity and instead embrace the identity of their children. And I see this and I think it's beautiful to have that much love, to embrace identity. But sometimes I see mothers lose their own purpose and own self. And instead, it's sometimes almost like they're hiding behind the need to be a mother.
Oh my gosh, 100%, 100%. One of the biggest, like, I learned a lot over the past approximately 10 years of running multiple women's gyms, like as in boot camps and online, and then having the 2 locations as well, like the bricks and mortars gyms as well, for women. And it was a fascinating kind of things that I learned. Like, for example, one thing that is mothers are always putting themselves last. Always, 100% every single time. And it was almost like you on a face surface, you think, oh, it's they're doing it, to be, put themselves, because they're constantly giving, which is true. Most women like mothers do that. But I think also it's so easy to do something for someone else than do it for yourself.
Yes.
For example, like women would come in and I'd say like, oh, this is the membership fees or something, you know, I'm selling a membership. And then they'd be like, oh, you know, say $35 a week is too much. But they have their two daughters in dance classes, paying their dance classes $30 a session. And then they have the sons in a soccer, which is $1,000 a season. And they have all these things. And then their partners or husbands would be, you know, a part of a gym that's like a big CrossFit gym or something and paying a fortune. And then they were like, oh, I just can't afford it. But really, is they can't, it's so much harder to be accountable for yourself. And it's a lot easier to bring the kids and say, well, I'm giving myself up like a martyr almost, like, you know. And I think sometimes, like, I see that in a lot of women, like they say things like, oh, they can't train because like you know, oh, their kids have got to go to their sports and things like that. Or, you know, I can't do training on these like at nighttime because I got to bring the kids to their sports. And to me, there's the hubby.
Yeah, the superstar.
They're all off now. So yeah, so a lot of them would like,
they're off to jiu-jitsu class, right?
Yeah, they're all three of them. They're off to no-gi tonight.
Yeah.
And to me, it's sort of like, I always saw that if I'm not prepared to do it, how the hell am I supposed to get my kids to do it? Because one thing I know is that your kids don't listen to what you say. They do what you do. That's it. So if you want your kids to be healthy and fit, you got to be damn healthy and fit yourself. Yes. If you want your kids to eat well, you got to be eating well. If you don't want your kids smoking, you don't smoke. You know, like it's not they don't listen to what you're saying. So when I see all these women and they say, oh, I've got to, you know, I really like my kids doing martial arts, or I like my kids playing sport and being in a team and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, then why the hell are you not in it?
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Because they're not listening to anything you're saying.
Yeah. and something that you do really well, Tracey, especially in this day and age, is your two boys. You have created a space where they don't have smartphones.
That's correct. So we are like, I think at first, it just didn't make sense to me. It's like so they never had phones at all when they were in primary school.
Can we just go to this as well? Because I think this is really important on this point. They're not young kids that are sort of 4-year-old type boys.
No.
They're older boys. So
yeah, nearly 15 and nearly 17.
Yeah, so to have a 15-year-old boy and a 17-year-old boy who don't have smartphones, I think that's extremely special. Yeah, so continue. How did you negotiate with them to not have a smartphone?
So, you know how like there's that rule. Let's talk about negotiations. So the problem is, at first I gave in to, I didn't know what was right. I didn't know. So I was they had no phones or anything during primary school. A lot of kids from grade 4 or 5, they all have smartphones. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, well, when you go to high school, I can understand that. Like, you know, that, you know, social media was a big thing and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, let's, so we gave my eldest Max, a phone for Christmas, you know, going into high school.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, great. And then he's on Facebook at that time, and they're on like some class chat groups and stuff. And this was like seriously just for 1 month. So he did get a taste of it, just so you know. So for the first month of school, he's on this, like all this, and I think like having on those chats. So he's met all these new people for the first time.
Yeah.
And they're all exchanging, messenger, and they're chatting. And he was like, felt, I guess, like pressured to go along with whatever they were saying online. Do you know what I mean? Like, or what on their phone. And I could see the energy just drop out of him.
Yeah.
And then Kira and I were just like going, this doesn't feel right. Like, how on earth is this right? You have a 13-year-old who is going through massive changes in life, hormonally, physically, mentally, emotionally. And we're giving him a supercomputer to carry around with him when he's trying to engage and be and make new friends and things like that. And I was like, this just doesn't seem right. So we just like axed it. We actually said, we were like, no. So no more phones. So then it was almost like we took this monkey off his shoulders and kind of like, well, I now can just blame my parents. And instead of,
that's amazing. So do you think he felt relieved when you took the phone away from him?
At first, he was very angry. It's almost like it became an addiction so fast, like within moments. You see young kids, that's why, like with gaming as well, or any of these sort of things, it becomes so addictive so fast because you're getting this instant dopamine response. And at this stage, we weren't aware that Maximus had ADHD either. So that on top of it. And so we thought we'd just like take it away, like clean, nothing. So we took it away. At first there was like, oh, how am I supposed to communicate with my friends? But he's like, he is hilarious. And he's like, what do I do? Get a set of pigeons out the back that I have to send messages off. And he's like, he did a lot of that sort of like carry on. And then he was just like, oh, just was so chilled and so happy and just like back to smiling and back to looking at people in the eyes. Like if you have a look at teenagers, it's like this on the way to school where you got Max just like bouncing along, like out the door, and loves communicating directly with people and really interested in that connection, that real connection. And then we said no social media. So we doubled down. So we took the smartphone, but he still had the computer for school and stuff. And then we just banned all social media altogether. Nothing. So he had nothing. And so then it was this like another level. And so this was also so he had no social media, no phone, and the only way he could communicate with his friends was directly. So he would actually just like jump on his bike and knock on their door. So it's like, and the moms were like, what's going on? Who's at the door? Like, and he's just like, hey, does Dan want to come out and play? Like hang out? It's like old school, really old. And I think then he started feeling quite like an individual.
Yes.
Like a real individual. And he loved that. And then his little brother comes into high school and he's like, where's my phone? And it's like, there's no phones. And we just stuck with it. Eventually, like we did get them, they both have phones now, but they're like bricks, like the Nokia 110. So if they want to text, yes, they've got to like press like, 3 buttons and try and work out.
Try and get the wire. And there's no social media on those phones, right? There's no apps.
Nothing.
All you've got is green text text messages that will take you forever to write.
And he's got the game Snake. That's it. And that's for both of them. And so they've both got nothing, no social media. And what it has done is their mental health is phenomenal for what this stage, from what I've seen in around, like, you know, like chatting with a lot of other parents and stuff, and then that's the thing, like a lot of parents will say to you, like, oh, I would love to do that, I think it's a great idea, but I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I just figure, yes, you can. It's just you're the boss.
Yeah.
Parents, you don't negotiate with terrorists.
So
there's no negotiation at all. It's just, this is the rule, and that's it.
So the $1 million question is how do you negotiate with kids to make it happen? And
You don't.
Yeah, you don't negotiate.
Yeah.
You don't
You don't
negotiate.
negotiate. And you don't set yourself, like, and yeah, if you take it away now, yes, there will be some repercussions. For example, like anyone detoxing from anything, like that's the thing. Like they're going to have the same response from anyone. You know, like if you've all of a sudden if you've let your kids, because they were 3 or 4 years old, just eat chicken nuggets and nothing else because they're telling you what they want.
Yeah.
And then you just start saying, well, sorry, here's some, you know, here's your meat and some veg. That's it. You know, of course there's going to be tantrums, and of course there's going to be like, but at the end of the day, you're not here to be the best friend. You're here to parent them. So that's my stance on it. It's like, and I'm not like, I use a smartphone because I guess like you have to, like, you know, working business. I probably use social media mostly just for business, like, because I have to, like, you know, you have, but I didn't grow up in those most vulnerable stages of my life, but comparing myself to people, you know, looking at an Instagram picture that's been completely filtered and unrealistic, you know, or anything like that. So I guess it's different for me because I don't have, you know, it's not shaping who I am.
Mm. And yeah, I think we're probably around about the same age, and I feel the same. I feel like our age group had the benefit of developing, just like Max did, where we had to go knock on the door. Or I remember wanting to hang out with a friend, and I'd have to call their home landline to speak with their parents, to then ask if I could speak with my friend, and then ask my friend if he wants to go out somewhere. So it was it was a way of forcing better communication skills as well, because you would have to speak with people that you didn't necessarily want to speak with, like the gatekeeper, right? The parents of the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And you knew that you had to connect with the parents for the friendship, but it also taught you respect, and it taught you how to connect. So I think that the way you've allowed Max
and Lex, both of them,
to develop like this, it's no surprise that the mental health has really benefited from this. You know, at the moment, Tracey, there's some new laws that they're speaking about bringing into South Australia, which is a banning of social media for kids that are under 14.
Oh, I thought Albo was bringing into national. It was a national law. They're putting forward. I heard that Albo was saying under 16.
Under 16. And so if they need a face for the Yes campaign in terms of bringing that new law in, would you give your face to that campaign?
Well, look, this is the thing. It's like the social media is such an echo chamber. So if, like, how can, and I don't know, but like you look at these kids and they're the most so vulnerable, you know, like we are, like, you know what, another thing is like watching kids, your babies, compete is a huge thing, right? And we, like, as a group of people, we found it so hard competing as kids.
Yes.
That shaped who we are, that we almost want to protect our kids. And you see a lot of people, it's like, you know, the sporting games where the kids, there's no score or things like that, like in a football game until they're under 10s, or some you know, different, you know, leagues and different things. But all the kids are keeping score.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter. Every kid knows that, you know, like the score. And it's and I see like that you do these things to protect them, right? Like you feel like you want to stop them from competing and things like that. But you need to build, they need to build up resilience. You need to build up that, like, yeah. And I mean, I mean, that's why the boys doing BJJ with their dad, it's a non-negotiable. That's another, there is no negotiations involved at the house. So we have a few.
You're tough, Tracey. I'm getting a good insight for you hearing your negotiation strategy.
Yeah. So we do, yeah. So we're like, you know, there's some, yeah, we're pretty tough, I think, like strict parents, but give the kids space to be who they are. So we don't, like, both the boys are becoming the men that they want to be, you know, and they've got great role models in their life, you know, and Max looks at you as a role model as well. He's always like going on about, that's why he wants to jump in. And so one thing I love about like the BJJ world and in particular Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is that tribal mentality, because as young men growing up, you want to, they are looking for, they don't necessarily want to just be like their parents. I mean, none of us grow up going, oh, I want to do exactly what my mom did or exactly what my dad did. They grow up and they look at, you know, people in the community. And the good thing about that, the boys doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is they're in a very safe, controlled environment. They're pushing themselves. They're rough and tumbling, you know, because boys have that testosterone. They need to kind of like get that frustration out on the mat, you know, roll around with men that know how to control their monster. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they learn those things from BJJ, and having that tribal mentality of that kind of like that sense of community. I don't see that in many other places around. So being a part of BJJ is a non-negotiable so they can learn to be good men.
That's awesome. And what about the risk of hurting themselves, particularly in competition? Because your boys compete as well, and there's obviously benefits in that, but there's risks as well. So what's it like as a mum, understanding benefits, but also seeing those risks?
I think as a mum, I remember Lex's. Now Lex he's the cutest thing. Like we actually call him Baby Lex. So everyone knows him as Baby Lex because he's got this like little baby face, and he's but he's a giant. He's huge, but he's just like, he's my baby. And I remember, I think he was 6, maybe 7 years old, and he's a big kid, right? So and there was no one in his weight division for that age group, and it was his first comp. So all of the BJJ comp training that he'd done up until that time was just like this, like lots of little tumbling and lots of little kind of like holding each other down and then letting each other up and having a go, you know, back and forth. And then in his first competition, they put him into an age group up. So he was like, must have been 7, and he was going against some 9-year-olds, and they choked him out. And it was holding him here, like, you know, like, it was like a really naked choke.
So when you say, hang on a second, when you say choke out, do you mean like to sleep?
No, he wasn't there. They with the kids, they always like, you know, break it before it's fully on.
But he was getting choked right there on the mat. Yeah.
Yeah. So his first thing, he's like all smiling and he's like, hey, and then he like high fives the guy, and then he goes into the roll, and then he's like getting choked. And then he's holding his hands here, and he's like just starting to cry, and he's looking over at me, and he's like, Mom, why? Mom, why? And I'm like going, I'm the worst mother in the world. Why would I let someone just like do this to my baby? And that is really hard. That was his first fight, and he never wanted to compete again. And then he went back, and now he's dominating like crazy, like as a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
But what it does is, from a young age, it teaches them, and you could see it, like, yeah, that was a really tough situation, you know. It's the same as when like Max would climb trees like a monkey, and then I'd be like holding my breath, hoping he doesn't fall. You got, you know, but they're going to do this. And it's important for kids to push the limits safely, because if they don't do it in the sandpit space, how the hell are they supposed to do it when it's in real life?
Yeah.
Like, they will do it in real life. And every kid grows up to be an adult, and every adult deals with confrontation and deals with like so much like stress and chaos and things like that in their life, that if they haven't been taught to handle it in a controlled, safe environment, they have no chance of being able to control it in a, or you know, in a real life scenario. I mean, if you think about it, it's like your body. Another thing, what I absolutely love about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is this control of. So when it comes to, when you have that the same response for your body when you are under mental stress. So whether it's for exams for school, whether it's, you know, you've got a big business deal that you're trying to fix up and you've got a lot of pressure financially on you, or relationships or anything like that, you start to hold your breath and you can't think. Everyone does that. What Brazilian Jiu Jitsu does for the boys is it teaches them to relax, take a breath, and just be and think about the next move. And that's essentially what Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is. It's like, it's doing that all the time. So for us, that's why it's a non-negotiable.
Yeah. So I understand what you're saying as well, is you allow your boys to grow, that yes, they might be in some uncomfortable situations through the experience of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but that also allows them to learn the skills that they will need through the journey of life.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what else around can give it to them like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Like nothing. Maybe, you know, like grappling. I feel like wrestling is amazing. I think like any martial art, but I feel like another thing is every other martial art, other than I've seen like judo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is kids get like, can be 7 or 8 years old and they've become black belts.
Yes.
And so it, just like those other sporting games where there's no score, it's like they don't think of it as if there's no 7 or 8 year old that's going to be able to beat a grown man, you know, like, or a grown woman. It just doesn't. So why are you giving them a false sense of security, you know? And the boys do deal with that, like watching all of their friends doing karate and taekwondo and other sports like that. And they're like, yeah, I got another stripe after 6 years. Like, I got another, you know, and, you know, Max, like recently, like, so he's 16 and he got his blue belt.
Great.
And so he's like, you know, over the moon, feeling great, you know, and dominance also, like they grade hard as well. Like, so if he gets it, like, you know,
he earns it. He's earned it.
He felt like amazing. And then everyone, like all of his friends is cool, and they're like, dude, haven't you been doing that for like 10 years? And he's like, yeah, how quick did I get there? Like,
and his teacher's an absolute beast as well in Lincoln Hancock.
Link is so incredible with all the kids. And I have quite a few girlfriends that are mums that I'm like, they've been on waiting lists to get into dominance as well. And they've persevered because I'm like, it is the place to be. So
Yeah.
you know, like, but I think it gives them a sense of so there's the three things in the house. There's no social media or phones.
Yes.
Where they have like the Nokia, because then they can call, but that's
They've got the brick with
they've
snake
got a brick.
green
Yeah.
slow text messages.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And so there's that. BJJ is non-negotiable,
Mhm.
and they got to go to bed by 9 o'clock every night. And that is
Awesome.
another thing that's really weird for people going, like, and when you're telling a 16, nearly 17-year-old and a 15-year-old that they've got to go to, and everyone's in bed at night before 9, like, and they only get home from BJJ at 8:30. So it's like
So
showers.
how does that happen? How do they get
Yeah.
to bed by 9 when they're home at 8:30?
So what happened? Well, they get home usually. So they leave now at 5:30 most nights during the week, and then they're back at roughly between 8 and then sometimes 8:30 if they're just hanging around, messing around with everyone,
Yeah.
or if they had an extra training session or something. So what they do is they get home from school, they have a full dinner,
Yes.
like big meal. They go get ready for training. They do a bit of homework, whatever they've got to do, go to training. They come home, have another meal, and have showers and into bed.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. Like, no,
And how does their body go from that intensity of jiu-jitsu training into that peaceful state of sleep? Do they have challenges switching over?
No. It's one of those things that teenagers need more sleep than anyone. They need more sleep than little kids. So, like, and I also, because I get up early to train as well. Like, so I need some sleep, so I'm generally, both Kieran and I are in bed by about 9:30, and so is everyone else in the house as well.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Occasionally, like on the weekends, they're having friends over and stuff, like, sleepovers and whatever, then that's fine. Like, it's an odd thing on the weekend, maybe, or if we're all going out somewhere. But as a general rule, sleep is one of the most important things we need. So, especially as teenagers. So, and you're not allowed to sleep in. So you've got to get up and do all your other training and practice in the morning. So you want to get some sleep in.
That is inspirational. It's even something that I look at and think, man, that'd be so good to do, because the discipline of being able to get home and be efficient and in bed within 30 minutes of getting home, I think is in itself an amazing skill set and something that you're gifting the boys with. Perhaps they don't even really know it, but it's such an amazing thing, just that point alone. And Tracey, something I'd love to know about is this. We've spoken about a little bit about your business journey, just briefly. We've spoken about your amazing qualities as a mother. How is Tracey that we know different as the mother Tracey as opposed to the wife Tracey?
I don't know. Like, that's a really tough question.
Like, how do you see your role? So when you're stepping into the shoes of being Tracey the mum, how do you feel and experience in that role, and when
in comparison to different roles,
Tracey in comparison to stepping in the shoes of Tracey the wife?
Well, look, that's the thing. It's like, I have been with Kieran since we were 18 years old. So since the end of high school, and both Kieran and I are really, really different. And I think what we do is we are the opposite, and we bring the opposite. And long family line of the ADHD is on my side. Me Like maybe Kieran's really into that spreadsheet and maybe a little bit on the spectrum on the other side. So
Yeah.
we are so far opposite, but for some reason it's like,
Opposites
like
attract.
absolutely. So you know what was interesting? I'll tell you, actually, this is an interesting thing. When we got married, we were married at 23. And we're coming up to our 20th wedding anniversary next year.
Wow.
And so Kieran's probably going to be going over to the world titles for BJJ in Vegas.
Yes.
And I'm going over with him, hopefully. And we're going to renew our vows at like the Chapel of Love with an Elvis while we're
beautiful.
over there, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just really tacky and having a great time.
Yeah.
But when we got originally married, nearly 20 years ago, we had to do just, it was a part of the process of doing that premarital counseling. It was just like a process you do, like with the pastor that was married, like that was doing the ceremony. Yeah. And we had 5 sessions and you learnt about each other. And I think what I learned in those premarital counseling sessions set me up to be the best wife I could be.
Yeah.
And to accept only the best husband I can have. So I would never like expect, to just sit there and be like, and not put like, when it comes to relationships, what I have found is there's no such thing as 50-50. It's both have to be 100.
All in.
All in. So you can't go, I put the bins out, you do this. It's, I'll put the bins out, I'll do this, and I'll do this. And then the other partner's like, well, I'm doing this, this, and this because I want to show you how much I care about you. Or,
yes.
And you just, so when it comes to being a wife, what I have found is that, premarital counseling, what I learned about Kieran was he is so goal driven. Like it is like blinkers on, and no matter what, he is going to achieve his goal. Whatever he sets out to, he gets it. There's nothing that it's like, and I figured it like, so he's what they call is like a clerical mind. He's just so driven. Like if Kieran ever says he's going to do something, I would back him 100% of the way every single time. So he has this, but he has blinkers on. Yes. So nothing will stop him. Where I'm like all about the journey. I want to feel, I want to enjoy everything. So I'm walking down a path and I'm stopping and I'm going over here and I'm going over there, enjoying this. And I'm all about enjoying the moment and the process. So what we both do is Kieran is very, he's quite masculine and he is driven to an end. Like there's nothing stopping him, but except what I do is I pull him back and I get him to see what's happening around us. And I think get him to smell the roses along the race course that he's on, and pull back a bit and enjoy all of this effort he's putting in. And what he does for me is where I procrastinate. Because I've got that ADHD, sort of like, right, lights, I'm over here, music over here, where he's like, you've got to get the job done, so he's helped me so much in business as well as just like maintaining that focus, and when talks about and the planning process, he started our retirement plan at 19. He does that, I'm just, and so he helps me so much with staying on track and planning and future planning. And he's the only person I know that was prepared for COVID 2 years before it happened.
Yeah,
who does that? Yeah. Just in case. Yeah, I'm setting up my business structure for that. That's so I would say that's where I help him smell the roses. He keeps me on track.
Yeah, so that's amazing in terms of understanding the strengths, being all in, like you say,
Yeah.
and appreciating what each other can bring to the table.
Yeah. 100%. You got to be, you both have to be wanting the most for your partner more than anything else, each equally, and not 50-50, both 100. You're going 200% into everything together. And then you got to look at what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And you got to help each other's weakness and enjoy the process of each other's strengths.
Yeah, and I see you both as fantastic examples of a successful marriage, as amazing individuals who come together in an amazing marriage and create and continue to create a beautiful family environment. In your communications with Kieran and time with Kieran, like you've been together since you were 18, you said, and
Yeah.
married at 23.
Yeah.
So
babies at 25.
yeah, so it's a lot of investment, and 25 is young these days to be having kids.
Yeah.
There would have also been challenges in those times. And I was wondering, what have you learned through some of the negotiation challenges that you've had with Kieran?
Like I tell you, one thing is when it comes to negotiations with your partner, I don't feel sorry. So with negotiations with your partner, first off, you can disagree, and you should challenge each other's opinions, because that's what's going to help you grow as people. I think as long as your values are the same, you can be a different person. So we have very strong family values, the value I needed to be with the kids growing up. I needed to be not a stay-at-home mum, but I had to be the primary caretaker. Needed it. And Kieran did not. he had no that was, but a lot of relationships can struggle because you're not the values aren't there, but we have the same values basically, but we're very different people. And negotiations, there is a couple of negotiations that we do have.
Yes.
Kieran, I personally love people.
Yes.
I'm like a puppy. I need to be with people. I'm a hugger and a kisser, and I'm very kind of like, I get a lot of energy from being with people.
Yeah.
And Kieran's like a cat. And he will go away and he loses energy from being with people. So we've had to negotiate over many years on the best formula for us to handle it. So we've come up with lots of ways of doing that, which I think you've got to always opposites attract.
Yes.
That's a normal thing, right?
The yin and the yang.
Yin yang every time. They're the one. That's the relationships that are going to last, right? But because you're so opposite, you generally get energy from a different space. So I love being with people. Kieran, he likes people. It's just he's not into dancing around doing karaoke and partying or for hours. So we have a agreement. It's like we go to X amount of parties a year. And he'll go for 2, and we go for a set time. And so no matter what, we're very strict with, okay, we're leaving at this time, you know?
Yes.
And otherwise it's just because then he's aware of the time and he understands like, yep, that's it. That's as much as I'm going to tolerate. Not that he doesn't like the people. It's just that he's like, you know, lots of noise and, you know, which I love, like, so,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's an example of like, we have that negotiation of, okay, this is your needs, this is my needs, and we've got to make it advantageous for everyone.
Yeah. And knowing the needs of each other, being able to communicate and reach agreement in respecting each other's boundaries and needs to find that happy place where everybody can win.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really interesting when you explain the differences in terms of your expression and connection with people and Kieran's more, let's say, calculated or a little bit more sitting back type style, because we've had Kieran on the Rolling Through Negotiations podcast. And if you see Kieran on the podcast, he's quite still and not all that expressive. Whereas you're extremely expressive. As you speak, your body reaches out. You want to communicate with your mouth, with your facial expressions, with your whole body to connect and make your point in that communication. It's really interesting as you're explaining this, noticing those differences as well.
Well, yeah, like, so, and we're very different. Like, so Kieran is calculated like that in every way. Like, and he's very smart. Like, he's electrical engineer and deals with facts and figures and data. And, you know, like, he's super smart in that sense. And the idea of doing like just spreadsheets makes me want to throw up. Like, just like, and so it is funny how like you can see him where I light up the idea that I'm going to teach an abs and booty bust class with a bunch of women and make them, you know, and everyone's loving it and vibing with it. You should see him with there was the world championship spreadsheet competition. And he's watching that on the TV and he's losing his mind like a 10-year-old playing Minecraft with his friends, like
over the spreadsheet.
And he's like, oh my God, look at it. Don't know where did he come up? And I'm like going, yeah. And then when it's anything else, it's like, But I know, So that's that was and I think understanding, and I think it's, you got to just look at, a lot of people look at people and go, and you got labels and you go, oh, that's who they are. And I don't know, you can look at any kind of like, you know, mental health label, I guess, like, and you can choose to look at it in a positive way or a negative way. And if you choose to look at it in a negative way, then you kind of like start victimizing yourself, or you start looking at someone like a victim. And if you look at it as a positive way, you start looking at a person as strong and you know, in control and on top of it and bossing it and stuff like that. One thing was like, so like I mentioned before, like Maximus, he has ADHD, and it's really quite common these days. Everyone, like a lot of people getting diagnosed and things like that. And a lot of people, when Max got diagnosed, it was seen as, oh, you know, there's, that's a, you know, it almost seen as like a disability, I guess. And he also has dyslexia. And so everyone's like, oh, so that must be really tough. And then for Max, that's not the case at all, because like we've raised him with the attitude of, this is who you are. And he wrote this like essay to get into a leadership program or something where, and he's like, I feel like a hunter in a farmer's world. So that's a way of looking at ADHD, you know. And then it's the same as like if you're, you know, possibly on the spectrum as well. It's like, to me, that's like, you're just totally like, you have an ability to be so focused on things without anything, you know, getting in the way of your goals. Like, I just think it's amazing like that. So
is it about embracing the fullness of who you are?
100%. Yeah. You got to take every bit of someone. You can't have anything all good in your eyes. It's like eating sugar. You can't have just the fructose from the fruit. You know, you got to have it with the fiber. You got to have it with, or else it's just not. It's not good for you. You know, and I think that that's the way everyone is. Everyone has their things that they're like, that they, I guess, like every person has their things that just make them up who they are. And you can choose to look at that as an awesome thing, or you can choose to look at it as a negative thing. And what I've noticed is the people that see things more often than not in the negative, they usually just, that's a reflection on themselves, on what they're afraid of. And like, yeah, and I think people that see people with, you know, neurodiversities and things like that as a positive more often than not, they get to just enjoy the game. They get to enjoy the whole game of life rather than, you know, than just sitting back complaining, going, oh, you know, it's all, I don't like that. Or, you know, for example, I could say the boys are out training every night.
Yes.
Oh, when do they have it? It's like they're always out training. They're never here with me. Or I could say, I got the house to myself. And I get and they get all that testosterone out of the house, and I get to just and I get to enjoy these incredible, healthy, super athletic humans living a happy life with no frustrations in the house. So you can choose to look at it like either way. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's the way you can look at any relationship as well. Any relationship with your kids or your partners or anything. So either look at it as a positive thing or look at it as a negative thing.
Yeah, and so when looking at the positive and negative, that's a great point. The glass half empty or the glass half full type scenario comes to mind when you say this, Tracey. What about the perspective of when you're running your gym? Back, you know, when you were running your gym and you're working with mums who are busy, they're time poor, and they come in and they say to you, I really want to get fit, but I've got, and I can afford to pay to join the gym. The problem that I have is time. So how do you negotiate with mums like this who want to get fit, but they feel like they don't have enough time to meet their fitness goals?
Okay. So that is, it's a good question because like, I think all gyms will hear, that's a classic, I haven't got the time. Everyone's got the time. Everyone's got the time to do it. And what I did with my gyms was I said, I haven't got the time because I've got my kids. And I was like, well, you bring the kids.
Yes.
And then they said, oh, I can't bring the kids because they're sick at home. And then we had a hybrid system. So you can either just zoom in to the live class and we'll see you at the back of the room.
Yes.
No excuse. There's no such thing as I see women that are single mums that are making it into the gym 5 days a week. That are working full time and they've got 3 kids under 5 and they're still making it into the gym. You know, there's no such thing. So that's usually not the thing to know is it's not that they're time poor, is that they don't value their time enough. So you got to work out what's going on. Like, and it's usually something else. And it's usually because I can tell you that if it meant that, you know how like you hear people say, I die for that person.
Yes.
You hear that. I hear, you know, like you hear that a lot from the
like a cliche, right?
Yeah, it's a cliche. It's like, I'd die for my kids, you know, I would do anything for my kids. But would you live for them?
Yeah.
Would you live the best life you can for them?
Yeah.
Would you show them how to live the greatest life? Because then, you know, like that's where I'm at.
Yes.
I'm like, you know, like to me, that's the real question. It's like, of course you die for them. Of course you, if it meant that you had to give your heart in order for them to live, you would give it, you know? That's the nature of all parents, you know, and grandparents and things like that. It's the nature, right?
Yes.
But would you live for them? Would you live like the best? Would you be the best role model for them?
Yeah.
Now that takes more guts than anything else. And that's usually kind of like probably the message I try and pass on to people without directly saying it, you know, but and I work around it after a couple of cups of coffee and whatever else, like just to kind of go, well, you know, you got to show them and stuff like that. But essentially the message is, of course you die for them, but would you live for them? And would you live absolutely the best life for them?
So good. Tracey, I think you've answered the question in such amazing spirit and incredible style. The question of why would Tracey Robson Garth be invited onto Rolling Through Negotiations podcast, and everything you've just shared, all your insights, your love, your wisdom as a mother, your negotiation strategies.
Or lack of negotiating. No negotiating.
Negotiating. Everything you've said answers the reason why. I think
you're very sweet, Matthew.
You've honestly shared so much beautiful wisdom in the feminine, motherly, divine way, like the quote spoke at the very beginning. And one day, Tracey, I'm going to give you a call and say, hey, Tracey, it's time. It's time to come back onto Rolling Through Negotiations because there's heaps of stuff that I really wanted to ask you that I wrote down in preparation that I didn't get a chance to ask. So that day will come. Tracey, you've shared so much wisdom already. And I was just wondering, is there any parting words of wisdom, of motherliness? Yeah, you've got it.
Okay. Yeah. One thing that I have learned, because I teach, basically, I coach and I train, and I like to think of myself as like, instead of being like that super athlete that that I feel like I'm a part of everyone's journey, like, you know, you're an amazing athlete, like my husband, my boys, all of their training partners, as well as all the women that I train, thousands of women that I've trained over the years. And I like to think of myself as like that, you know, like Mickey in Rocky's corner. Like I like to think of myself as that person as opposed to Rocky. So when I see myself in a metaphorical kind of position, I don't see myself as the Rocky. I think of myself as like the little dweeby Mickey in the corner. And I guess like, so he's like, modeled off, Mike Tyson's coach, like that same sort of mentality.
Gus D'Amato was Mike Tyson's
D'Amato, that's it. Gus D'Amato, that's it. So the one thing that I do every day with everyone is I don't ever ask someone how they are or how they feel. I tell them how they feel, because that's all that really matters. Because if you go around going, oh, how do you feel? Did you find that hard? Or, like, so if I'm teaching a class, like I'm jumping up and down and doing a hit class, and then I go, you guys fight, how do you feel? How are you going with that? Then there's an option for them to stop and think, oh, geez, I might feel crap. Instead of that, I just like, you're feeling awesome. You're doing awesome. And I do that with the boys as well. It's like, you're awesome. You're doing fantastic. You're feeling great. You've had a great sleep. And I do that with Kieran as well. Like, you know, incredible. Like, you're amazing. And the same is for you, Matthew. You're the most, you must be feeling so incredible, because you're like a ray of sunshine in the legal world. I can tell you that. I've never seen a happier lawyer in my life. And so you must be feeling amazing. And that's something that I do as a principle. I don't ask people how they feel. I tell them how they feel, because that's what matters.
Don't negotiate.
No, no questions.
Beautiful, Tracey. Thank you for connecting. And remember, everyone, subscribe, like the show, and tune in each and every single Thursday when the brand new episode of Rolling Through Negotiations podcast comes out. Tracey Robson Garth, us.
Us. Amazing. Thank you so much.
That was so good. Thank you, Tracey. That was great.
Bye.
Bye.